Today we've got the Garmin Forerunner 965, and we'll take a look at the Apple Watch Ultra 2. In my opinion, two of the best smartwatch slash sport watches that you can buy on the market today. I've spent a lot of time over the last few weeks researching smartwatches and sport watches, running specific watches, all while wearing the Apple Watch Ultra 2 for about the past 6 months. Really, lately, battery life has started to irk me with the Apple Watch Ultra 2, even though I can pretty safely get 2 days of use out of it if I'm doing normal workouts or tracking runs during the week. The battery anxiety and the need to be close to a charger every day or so was really starting to get to me. So I started looking for solutions on how can I get a watch that does all the same things, has dual band GPS, and can track my workouts and heart rates and runs, but last maybe a week at a time. So enter the Forerunner 965. After consuming hours of YouTube videos and reading what everybody else is wearing on Threads, I decided to pick up the Forerunner 965. It's got dual band GPS, a great tried and tested heart rate sensor, and pretty much all of the same health features as the Apple Watch and Apple Watch Ultra 2. Now, there is no perfect smartwatch, so unfortunately there's positives and negatives with both of these things. The Apple Watch is a really great smartwatch that's a pretty good fitness tracker, and I'd argue the opposite is true for the Garmin. It's a really great fitness watch that is just an okay smartwatch and does kind of fall on its face when you're pairing it with an iPhone. So after about a week of use with the Garmin, I'll start with the two things that I think it has that rival the Apple Watch. Number one is obviously battery life. The Garmin's currently sitting at 75% battery life and is estimating that it could go another 18 days before it would need to charge. Now, I haven't done any heavy duty use. I haven't actually even used the dual band GPS for runs. This is just normal fitness tracking indoors. So I've done indoor walks, indoor runs, strength workouts, stretching, and a couple outdoor walks with the dog. So not as heavy as a use case as I usually would do, but it gave me a good idea about how the battery reacts in a fairly normal use case scenario for me. And second is the ability to edit distance when you're done with a treadmill run or bike. I still don't know why Apple hasn't implemented this, but their indoor treadmill distance tracking is pretty terrible. It's always short, sometimes by even up to a quarter mile, depending on your calibration and a few other factors. So for the Garmin to be able to just track your heart rate throughout the run, and at the end of the run, you match up your distance in the app or on the watch with what the treadmill says, as long as your treadmill is accurate, that's great. And it makes it easier for tracking things like a weekly mileage goal. If you're trying to increase mileage week over week, it's a good thing to have accurate mileage in the app. A few other nuances: the Garmin is slightly smaller and slightly lighter than the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and that's definitely noticeable on the wrist. And the heart rate sensor is flat on the bottom, so that's a little bit unique. I've been wearing an Apple Watch for years that has the domed heart rate sensor on the bottom, and I had no issues with the Garmin either, tracking or dropping out in the Apple Watch, and I found the band was comfortable as well, and there's plenty of adjustment points here to get a nice secure fit without being overly tight while doing your workouts. Now, some of the downsides with the Garmin, coming from an Apple Watch, the UI is just a little bit clunky. There's a lot of customization. So it takes me back to the Android days, right? You can change every little setting on the watch, every screen, in every different workout. There's notifications galore. And from that standpoint, it's actually easy to figure out how to change things and what you can change. There's just so much of it compared to the Apple Watch that it definitely could be overwhelming if this is your first time using a Garmin. I found that the UI, it's a typical 5-button layout for the Garmin, so you can use the buttons everywhere to navigate. You don't have to use the touchscreen. I did find that a little bit finicky. Trying to switch between touchscreen and buttons in some cases is a little bit buggy. There's definitely seemed like the watch wanted to use the buttons in some spots, and it was okay using the touchscreen in other spots. So your mileage may vary, but that's my experience. Now, there's no onboard assistant with the Garmin watch, so that makes things like setting timers or reminders just a little bit more clunky than they need to be. It takes a number of button pushes to get to a timer or stopwatch on the Garmin, whereas you have Siri on the Apple Watch who will respond, and that's actually one of the best use cases for Siri, setting timers, setting reminders, taking quick notes, and occasionally I'll use Siri to start and end workouts. One thing that bothered me just a little bit about the Garmin watch is it doesn't track time in heart rate zones on a weekly basis. Now, this is something you need a third-party app on the iPhone and Apple Watch in order to do, but it does do it. And I like having that information, especially if I'm training for a specific goal or specific type of aerobic benefit. A quick Google search reveals that there seems to be some third-party apps on the Garmin ecosystem that will do this as well. I just kind of figured this would be something that was built in because Garmin really has everything else on device out of the box. You know, you can create and send workouts to the watch, you can download music, send that to the watch, save maps, send that to the watch. Almost all of these things on the Apple Watch require a third-party app, so it's nice to have a lot of those features built in on the Garmin. And maybe lastly, one of the things recently that I've really been taking advantage of on the Apple Watch is the cellular functionality. Something that I never thought would be necessary on an Apple Watch. Obviously, the previous series watches that I've had the ability to purchase a cellular version, and I never did. I would only get the GPS version. Couldn't imagine paying more for that feature. And on the Apple Watch Ultra, I used it for maybe 4 months without the cellular enabled. And as I started to run more and didn't want to take my phone with me, I enabled the cellular functionality, and it provides a great peace of mind as you're running that if there were emergency or if I got hit by a car or, whatever, injured on the run, that I have the ability to contact emergency services or an emergency contact in a situation like that. So I'm definitely spoiled here being able to use both of these watches, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and the Forerunner 965, basically top of the line for what they are. And I've tailored my use of the Apple Watch with enough third-party apps now that I effectively have recreated the Garmin ecosystem on the Apple Watch Ultra. So it made this decision really hard to figure out which one I would use. And I have a perfectly good, capable Apple Watch that I would show you right now, but it is on the charger. So like I said at the beginning of the video, the battery on the Apple Watch is just one of those things that's kind of finicky, and I've decided I have to live with it. I don't run ultra marathons, nor am I even running a marathon for that matter. So as long as fitness activities might go for me is a few hours. The Apple Watch definitely has all-day battery life, and you can definitely track activities for those extended periods of time as well. But battery is the biggest dislike that I have with the Apple Watch. Second is weight and bulk. It's definitely noticeably heavier than the other Apple Watches in the lineup, and of course it's the biggest Apple Watch that they make. So it is a little bit bulky on the wrist. If you have smaller wrists, it looks a little bit funny. It does kind of get caught on sweatshirt cuffs and different articles of clothing, but it is easy with the trail loop to get a great fit. You can get just the right amount of lockdown with the Velcro strap. And then if you're not working out where you need that constant contact with the heart rate sensor, you can kind of loosen it up and it does become a lot more comfortable. But even with the weight, it does sort of just melt away. I've gotten used to it now at this point. So there are times where I totally forget that I'm even wearing it. I'm highly addicted to the Apple Fitness rings, and I don't think I can get rid of that habit of wanting to close the rings every day, even though the Garmin watch does record data and you can push it to Apple Health, which then closes the fitness rings. The data that lives in Apple Fitness just isn't that great. It doesn't push the full heart rate chart, and there's no additional, running metrics if you are interested in those. I also enjoy the social aspects of fitness on the Apple Watch. I get a notification when my wife or friends finish workouts, and I love to be able to send little jests to friends and encouragement to many other people. And the fitness competitions are really cool as well, even though I almost always lose. So while it was nice having the simplicity of the Garmin watch, a nice simple watch face, no notifications coming at me, a sort of no frills running watch, if you will, has a beautiful AMOLED screen, was comfortable on the wrist, is lightweight. If you don't have a smartwatch and you aren't ingrained in any of these systems, I wouldn't have any problems recommending the Garmin 965 or 265 or even any of the lower end Garmin watches that just get cheaper and cheaper as you go down in price, but build quality is basically the same. What you get is basically the same. For the Apple Watch, it's a much tougher conversation because you have the Ultra 2 or the Ultra 1 as the only two in the lineup with a dual band GPS chip. So if you're serious about running and you live in urban areas, or if you're doing outdoor activities, scaling rock faces or whatever, where you need dual band GPS, the Ultra is really the only option in Apple's lineup that makes any sense. And having owned an Apple Watch SE and Series 7, I can definitely say for a fact that the Ultra is more accurate with GPS tracking, but it also seems like the heart rate sensor works a little bit better as well. So if you're like me and you have a hard time either figuring out if what you own is the best for you and you just can't help yourself, these watches function basically the same. They do the same stuff, they track the same workouts. You can do walking workouts, running workouts, biking, cycling, hiking, trail running. It's all measuring the same stuff, all of the heart rate data, the pace data, the GPS mapping data. On Garmin, it goes into the Garmin Connect app. On Apple, it goes into the Apple Fitness app. You'd definitely be well suited with either watch. If battery life is important to you and you can live without some of the smart features of the Apple Watch, like cellular and the App Store to get third-party apps onto the watch, then the Garmin might be the right choice for you. If you're fully ingrained in the Apple ecosystem and you use Apple Music and your iPhone, and you like being able to do things like messaging on the watch, and if cellular is important to you, then the Apple Watch Ultra 2 might be the choice for you. Let me know how you compare and contrast these two watches. I think these are two great options on the market that at the end of the day, I'd be happy to wear either one on my wrist. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.